Hey everybody, it's Jason here with Murideo / AV Pro Global, and I have a special guest today for our podcast, and that is Steve Shaw from Light Illusion. How are you, Steve?
All good, mate. All good.
Awesome, great. Thank you for joining me. I wanted to speak to you today for a very specific reason, and you guys have been releasing some awesome updates in regards to ColorSpace, and we've seen some screenshots and some small demo videos that you've done, like on LinkedIn and YouTube and whatnot. But I wanted to get a little deeper into those things and show the users of ColorSpace what these new features are, why they're so great, and just give them a little bit of an alternative look on how to calibrate displays. So thanks again for joining me. If you guys are watching live, there's a chat box. Feel free to type in your questions. We'll get to them as we go. If we can't get to your question for some reason, we'll leave some time at the end. No big deal. With that being said, Steve, for people who might be seeing you for the first time or hearing about Light Illusion for the first time, just tell us a little bit about yourself and about your product.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been in the film industry forever, since leaving school at the age of 16, and have done everything from engineering in a manufacturing company to owning post-production companies to being a colorist, being a VFX supervisor, being a producer, pretty much, doing a whole run of different things within the industry.
Sure.
And as part of that, it became obvious that, well, actually it became obvious, I was actually grading some films in Italy, in Cinecittà Film Studios, and we were having some issues with color management, and none of the existing color management software was working. So I wrote a program to fix our problem, and in doing so, kind of made the decision that if I needed it, other people might need it. So
Sure.
I kind of released it as a real basic program initially, and over the years it's obviously grown, been developed. We've brought on very specific software developers and color science specialists to improve on my original basic idea, and that's become, the whole focus of what we do. The whole color management thing has become everything. I sold the post houses and gave up doing the actual color grading work, because the software became such a large product in its own right.
Sure, sure. And how long have you been banging on it now? How many years?
It's truth. Got to be something like 15 to 20 years.
Has it been that long? Yeah. I remember first hearing about ColorSpace and Lightspace probably about 10 years ago myself. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Lightspace was the original product, and that's the one that started very clunky and kind of got to a point about 5 years ago where it reached the end of what it was really capable of doing, and
Sure.
that's when we did a ground up redevelopment and got ColorSpace out the door, and
Yeah.
then obviously slowly cancelled or stopped supporting Lightspace.
Sure, sure.
But people are still using it. I mean, I've actually just had an email from a very well-known production company involved in sports in America today, asking some questions because they're still using Lightspace, although they are going to upgrade to ColorSpace. They're still using Lightspace because it works.
And you guys still have on your forums a lot of people contributing, and I check the forums now and again, and there's just a lot of very helpful information. In my opinion, it's one of the best forums for what we do out there. So if you guys want to check out the forums from Light Illusion and learn some stuff about ColorSpace and the different versions of ColorSpace, I would certainly check that out. And then Steve also has a bunch of really good walkthrough guides. He has a bunch of really good YouTube videos. He and I have done a few videos over the past. In fact, I think, Steve, the last time you and I did a video was, I think, when you were introducing the reporting at the end of the session. How's that going, the reporting part of it?
Yeah, I think it probably was. Obviously, that's been around for quite a while now. In fact, yesterday I got bored, and over the last few days, and I've written another report option just to show what is possible with reports.
Nice.
So there's a new, what we call a verification report that I've put up for people to download, just again to show how anybody can design their own reports, the layouts, the graphing, the data that gets automatically inserted into the reports. Users have complete control over that.
That's good. Very customizable, which is always the biggest what people like the most about ColorSpace, at least in my world, is the amount of customization you can do to it. And just literally being able to do whatever you want. I think a lot of people appreciate that. It's also why I like talking to you because, you and I come from different worlds. I thought for sure when I was like in high school that I would work in some sort of production broadcast. I was dead set on doing TV or radio broadcast, and I was always a big film guy, and I've been playing with cameras my whole life, and my grandparents always had nice TVs and stuff like that. So it's always good to hear from you because I can learn a little bit about what goes on the production side. I mean, yeah, I love to watch like at the end of a movie there'd be like the making of and the bonus features, but that's nothing like having real hands-on, real-world experience. So I appreciate you joining me today. I think we'll jump into it. And again, guys, if you have any questions, feel free, toss those in the question box in the chat box. We'll get to them as we go along. So I think, Steve, what would be good, I'll put you as a presenter, and then we can start looking at some of the new things in the software. So pardon me for just a moment.
I'm trying to remember them. Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to hand that over to you, and then now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Which?
Oh, there it goes. Nice speech.
Yeah. Okay. I can't. Oh. Okay. I can't see what you can see. So which one's being shared?
Let's see. I see your. It looks like your desktop with a wallpaper of a beach.
Is it? Can you see the ColorSpace?
I can.
You can't.
No, I can.
Okay.
I can.
Oh, you can. So okay. So
yes.
you can see that. If I wiggle that around. That's all right. I just thought, you know me. I don't know how this stuff works. I can't see.
The software's kind of
funky. What's going on? Anyway, there you go. Yeah, I mean, so we've done a whole host of new features in the software. We release new upgrades on a very regular basis.
True, very true.
So there's a whole host of things. So I mean, we've added in things like under the options for graphs. We've added LUV as a delta E capability, as well as the normal 2076 and ITP. So that was a new one that came in just recently. What else have we added? We obviously added in the interest in playing around with things. So when you're doing lookup table development, so if we say, okay, I'm going to target Rec 709 with this TCL. Actually, let's not do verify. Let's go to the original profile. So raw, there we go. And if we just create that, one of the things we have just done in the very latest release is we're now multi-threading. So the process of actually calculating the lookup is significantly faster compared to the previous versions, depending on how many CPU cores you have. But that one that I've just done there beforehand was taking somewhere between 30 seconds and a minute and a half.
Oh wow!
You can see now it's just done in seconds. So yeah. Anyway, but you can see. Sorry.
That's a TCL. Is it a mini LED backlight?
I mean, this is a Phalad micro LED
cool.
one. This is actually a development TV that I got sent actually a couple of years ago when we first started doing the development work with TCL. It's now out there. So the latest version of ColorSpace has a TCL LUT capability.
Nice.
TCL have done the development in stages. So at the moment you load the LUTs via a USB stick. In the next release, it will have full ColorSpace integration, but this is down to them, not down to us.
Yeah.
But you can do the calibration. It just isn't integrated into ColorSpace because they haven't put the hooks in.
Is it?
But anyway,
is it one of those situations where I remember because I owned a LG 55C7 years ago, and there was something with the Dolby Vision config file. You had to put it on a thumb drive, put it into the TV, and that sounds very similar to this. Yeah,
that's basically where it is at the moment.
Yeah.
But it will be changing. It's just obviously taking a few steps for TCL to get their firmware in line. But
that's good.
Between the two of us, we decided that we may as well go ahead and release the capability of doing it, even though it uses a thumb drive, because it still works.
Of course.
But
is there like a? Go ahead. Sorry.
Go on.
Is there a model number like range that this will work with, or is it any TCL?
Yeah. If you go to the user form, the website, and there we go.
Probably a list, I'm sure.
So if you can see that this is under the guides. You've got the TCL TVs, and if you go down there, you can see there the models that are
Okay, cool.
presently listed. Some I think it's the 23 year models have already got the required firmware. The older 22 models, they've got to do an over-the-air update, which I think is happening this month.
Oh, good.
So we'll see. This TV that I'm playing with here is neither of those models. This is a bit of a bastardized TV that we did the development on. So don't look at the data and say whether it's bad or good, because this is not an example of their real TVs.
Sure, it's just data.
Yeah, but I'm just using it because it you know, you can see the way that the LUT's been generated, and you can see that actually when I apply it, it's not bad, but there's a little bit of a kink in the blue.
Yeah.
It's a combination of reasons, but the only reason for showing it is that I know that we can use it with our newest modification, which is the ability to actually modify points in lookup tables. At the moment, it's limited to the 1D graph, but it will be in the 3D graphs, and fingers crossed, it will be in all of the profile graphs as well. So full point manipulation across the board. But the first iteration, we've done it in the 1D, which means you can, if you know that the probe you're using is not giving you good measurements in the lowlights, and therefore there's a kink in the LUT generated because the data is inaccurate, you can go in there and make changes to the points to actually compensate for any of the kind of erroneous readings that you've got from a less than stellar probe. When you make the changes, the dots, as you can see, go larger.
Sure.
And that means that they've been modified but not applied, and then you can literally apply each of the points, so that you've now basically burnt those changes into that lookup table.
The question I'm sure somebody's going to have at some point, because I've run into this myself, is this the lookup table method, or would this be modifying the display's 10-point grayscale, for example?
Well, this, because of what we're doing, this is modifying the lookup table.
Okay. Cool.
So if you're talking about controlling the manual calibration of a display, then no, we don't have DDC control in ColorSpace, because it's not. It's a load of development work for not a lot of gain when you can do that anyway. The display's remote control menu and things like device control, which does have certain DDC controls in for some monitors. So to be fair, it's not worth our time developing something that is not really going to be much of a gain.
Well, this is a better method and takes less time. Why not?
Yeah, and well, if you've got 3D LUT capability, then you should be doing it. You shouldn't be doing DDC anyway, and obviously that's our focus. The fact that we will bring it in, so I mean, if we go look at the profile that I've just used there, so that TCL RAW, so if I just grab up that profile, so this time we're looking at the actual profile data rather than the LUT. Turn off the filters. Then we can obviously see that in there we've got the start of this ability to do the same in the profile data. So we can actually get into points. In this case, I'm looking at the EOTF, but actually let's look at the RGB balance. And we can obviously go in and actually start to modify those points.
Oh, nice.
Or will be able to in the same way.
Cool.
So that this will backdate the data into the profile before you make the lookup table, whereas this approach is modifying the lookup table after it's been generated. They do the same thing.
Sure.
They're just being going to be able to do it different ways around. We haven't got this bit working yet, just because we haven't got it working yet. But the fact that very uniquely we can go into points in the full volumetric space. So if I turn off tangents, for example, then we can obviously go into any points here and select them.
Right.
The fact that we can select points in 3D space means that we could move them as well. So you will be able to move points in volumetric space in exactly the same way. So there's going to be a whole host of new capabilities coming.
It's almost like a video game. Just drag the dot into the hole. Just move it to where you wanted to move it. That's great.
No, exactly.
I can tell you from years of doing this, one of my wishes, I mean, we're talking 10, 12 years ago maybe, was if I'm looking at a screen and my target for, let's say, Rec 709 red, let's say my measurement is undersaturated and a little too orange. For the longest time, I've always said to myself, man, how cool would it be if I could just click and drag the measurement into the target where it needs to be, and then boom, it corrects. And this seems like you're on your way of doing that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That that is all part and parcel of the whole approach to having point adjust capability.
Yeah. And this is specific to TCL, and you don't have to give away any secrets or anything, but
Oh
have you
no,
had
no, 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 no.
conversations
No,
with
no.
other manufacturers?
This works with anything.
Oh,
This is not limited. No, no. The whole
oh,
thing of point adjust is it works on anything,
so that's
any
the
LUT.
LUT, not the TV.
Yeah,
Excellent. Okay,
yeah.
that broadens it. That's excellent. Very
Yeah, yeah,
cool.
yeah. No, it is not linked to anything. Any LUT that you generate can be modified. So I mean, if you
Perfect.
if you don't have, so for example, whoops, we have hit the wrong button. We have in the default Unity, for example, there that this is a LUT that has no data manipulation applied to it. So it's a
Hmm.
pure Unity LUT.
Hmm.
But then in exactly the same way, we can just grab a point and
Yeah,
move
just
it.
move it.
So we can actually, make changes based on whatever. And
Yeah.
if you double click at the same point, it will rotate through the colors. So you can see, because it obviously in a Unity, they're all overlapping. So by clicking once, it's selected red. Again,
Hmm.
it's selected green channel. Again, the blue channel. That's the target luminance channel, which you can't adjust because it's the target.
Right, right.
Click it again, and it'll go back to red.
Would you see this in real time? So in other words, if I was looking at, say, a ramp or a 16-step grayscale as a test pattern, would you see it in real time as you move those dots up and down?
When you apply the points, you will. So, for
Okay.
example, if I apply these points, just because I've done some crazy things there,
Yeah.
and then go look at that, then you can't really see it on this one because we're down in the shadows. I tell you
Yeah,
what,
sure,
if
sure.
I put in, tell you what I'll do. If I change that picture, add picture, we'll go into. Let's move it over there. Right, images, and if I grab a grayscale ramp.
So just so for people who are watching, and Steve, tell me if I'm wrong, but you're going to import your own image, apply the
Yeah,
LUT, and see how it affects it. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. Well, you can load any image you want. So
Any
now I've
picture.
applied grayscale, and
Hmm.
because it's the grayscale that I've modified,
Right.
you can see the changes I made
Yeah,
there, which are
sure,
pretty
sure.
severe.
A
So
little
if,
bit,
if we
yeah.
take that last band there, if
Yeah.
I go back into that point and pull it back down, apply it, there you
It's
go,
gone.
that band's gone. So, you are able to go into these points and actually say, right, well, that's the one that's too green.
Hmm.
So we'll take that and bring that down. And now it'll be a little bit less. So you can see
Sure.
now I've reduced the impact it's having. So yeah, and you can load in any images. So I mean,
That's
I'm
wonderful.
just picking off of what I've got on
Yeah.
the PC. But
So
I mean,
if
I don't know. Let's have a
if
look.
somebody had a reference image of something that they're very familiar with, it doesn't even have to be a test pattern, I'm guessing. You can bring in
Oh no, no, absolutely. I
anything.
mean that's the
Yeah.
whole idea is that if you're looking at if you've got a monitor that you're trying to calibrate and you're seeing a particular issue on a particular frame grab from a
Hmm.
movie, then you can load that in. So if I, for example, if I just go into what I've got kicking around on my desktop, there's the old Panasonic chart. There you
Oh
go.
yeah.
So
Well, I haven't seen that one in
that's
a
that,
while.
that
That's good.
one. If we just go into
Uh,
WebRef. So
in case anybody asks, is there any kind of limitation to the file type of the photo that you want to look at? Is it BMP, JPEG? Is
um,
it all of them?
there, no, I think we do TIFFs, DPX. Oh, you know what? Actually, I don't remember.
Probably the
I
common ones,
don't
I'm guessing.
remember. That one I just loaded was a DPX.
Okay, cool.
Um, that one is a Cineon. So,
Okay.
well, in fact, I mean, I'm just grabbing them from here. Look, so this is where they're coming from. So they're Cineons. Whatever. Let's have a look. What else have we got? Cal images. What are these? Oh, I have no idea what that is. But there you go.
So somebody, if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to do this from scratch, they would load the image onto their computer and then drop that image into a folder somewhere in the
Yeah.
ColorSpace system,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
it's
You just
available.
literally you just navigate to whichever location the files are in. So, you know, again, if we just make again, so from the LUT options, the LUT settings,
This is nice
here we go.
because test patterns are test patterns, but we've got to see
Yeah,
some real world content at the end of the day.
yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, well, I mean, if I go to here, so look, so if I go add picture, and what I'm going to do this time is do something. Where are we? Let's have a look. Desktop. Where's it
maybe
gone?
you have a picture of that beach scene.
Yeah, that's Skiathos in Greece.
Yeah, that's cool. The one I like a lot, just because it's built into the Murideo generator, there's an image of an older woman in a market surrounded by a bunch of fruits and food and
Oh, that's the
stuff. And
Indian. That's an Indian
yeah,
woman. Yeah,
yeah, it's a
I
it's
know
a
that
really
one.
good for skin tones and for shadow detail and color saturation. It's a really good image, but it's cool. You can pull in whatever you want. That's great.
Yep. Oh, there you go. There
And
you
while
go.
we're on
My
the,
car.
oh, there you go. There's your car. Yeah,
So yeah. So yeah, that's a JPEG. So it'll basically do
that's
with
cool.
whatever you want to do.
The car looks fun.
So yeah. Yeah. Cool. Anyway, so you can
That's
apply
good.
lookup tables to any image, and again, so with the image that we've got, or the lookup table that we've got here, is obviously doing the calibration of that monitor, but you can
Sure.
actually see it with and without the LUT
Oh, nice. Real simple check. That's
applied.
cool.
Right.
That must be
Yeah,
fairly
and yeah.
new because last time we talked, I think that was something you maybe still been working on, but it's live
Oh
now.
no,
That's
no,
great.
that's been in there from day one.
Oh, that has. Wow.
Yeah,
Thank you for telling
yeah.
me. That's a new one for me.
Well, I mean, the issue is there's so many features, capabilities in ColorSpace that sometimes people just don't see everything that's in there
Yeah.
because there are so many. I mean, if you've got the higher level licenses, then
Hmm.
obviously you've got all of these different functions that you can
Right.
apply to lookup tables as part of changing the combination. Changing the actual LUT data. So you've got, in this case, we're just doing basic standard gain,
Sure.
hue, saturation, luminance, all the rest. So you've got all these different capabilities in there that
Yeah.
are directly manipulating the lookup table, as you can see.
This is another good reason why I tell people to look at the forums, the ColorSpace and Light Illusion forums, because there's as you said, there's so much stuff in here, and even some of my friends who are power users even tell me, man, there's still some stuff in here I haven't had a chance to try it because there's so much. So if you guys want to see some of this information from other users, the forums are a great place to see that stuff.
So there you go. So that's that. So yep. So as well as adding this point adjust in there, and obviously vastly increasing the rendering speed,
Hmm.
the multi-threading will be expanded to encompass other things, because at the moment, when you're generating a LUT, it's still locking that thread out. So for example, if
Right.
I call up a profiling window, and if I again just say to make a LUT, while it's doing its calculation, I can't get into these other windows. Obviously, with multi-threading, that is possible.
Sure. Sure.
So expanding multi-threading so that you can be working on a profile, doing measurements while you're generating a lookup table or doing other things. So
That's
all of
cool.
this multi-threading stuff will expand down the line as well.
One of the questions that came in, if you could show the RGB balance, the 1D one more time. The question was how granular. So it looked like I'm a little further from my screen. It looks like we're going from 0 at the bottom on the x-axis up to 0, and then tenths of increments up to 1. Can
Well,
you get more?
the LUT is always effectively 100%. So it goes from 0 in the bottom left, which is black, up to white top right. And again,
Okay.
depending on whether the LUT is reducing luminance will define whether it goes to 1-1 or whether it's lower down.
Okay.
So, you know, but it's always the full range of the LUT. When
Cool.
you're making adjustments, the adjustment point, the granularity is effectively infinite, because when you select a point to change it, you can see that we're going up in 4 decimal places. And the
That's
more
good.
you zoom in, the more control you have, and obviously you can see that the grid has expanded to go with that. So you can actually do very, very small.
Good.
In this case, what are they? 10 thousandths? Is it?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Cool.
So you know you've got a very, very high level of granularity.
That's good, and I know that's really important for a lot of people. And thank you for the question. If there's any follow-ups to that question, feel free.
Well,
I know
the floating, obviously, you can move it around to get it out of the way when you're manipulating things. If you pop it back over the point that you're working on, so that point there, it will redock itself to that point. So it just means that if you're messing around with points and this is in the way, you can get rid of it so that you can go in and modify another point. But if you do that and pop it over it, it will redock.
Yeah. You and I spoke briefly before we started recording, and there's a projector manufacturer who has a system similar to this with their own software, but it's really kludgy. And this seems like it's with the granularity and the amount of points you can adjust. This really seems like the way of doing it. The software for that projector manufacturer seems pretty intuitive when you look at it, but one wrong button you could waste, you know, you could wipe out 20 or 30 minutes worth of work. So this is labeled well, it's easy to click, it's easy to tell what you're doing, and it's granular and stable, and this is good. This is the right way of doing it, I think.
I mean, we will be doing other changes. At the moment, you can see that if you count the points in any ColorSpace LUT, it's basically a 33Q.
Right.
We chose that size many years ago because it gives you kind of the ideal compromise between size and usability. When it comes to calibration, you really don't need anything greater than that. But if you're doing creative manipulation, there are times where actually you may want a greater resolution. So one of the things that we will be doing is changing the way that we have our internal definition of a LUT. So it will go from being a fixed 33 cube to being something that is, well, basically we haven't decided, but it will be unrestricted in the same way. That means that although you see 33 points here, in a later version of ColorSpace, there may be significantly more points available when you're working with LUTs. But we've got to change the kind of the core way that we treat the lookup table in this side of the program, and that is work that is in progress. So that will be coming along in the not too distant future.
The thing I'd like to remind everybody is that a 33 by 33 by 33 might sound big, and it is a big LUT. Don't get me wrong. But when our goal here is to reproduce that image as accurately as possible, I saw a little fun fact the other day, and it was about the Spider-Man, one of the Spider-Man movies, one of the recent ones, one of the animated, very colorful Spider-Man movies, and they said that for every 1 second of that movie took 1 week for the designers and for the colorists and for all the work that went into making that movie look the way it does. 1 week of work from those guys equaled 1 second of footage. So when you're looking at stuff that's in that kind of precision, yes, you need this many points for your monitor you're looking at the film on. Does that sound fair to say?
Well, I mean, calibration is calibration. You when you're manipulating color creatively, you really shouldn't be using LUTs. For on-set visualization, so that you can see on an on-set camera the way it's going to potentially look when graded. That's fine. That's giving the DP something to work with as a tool. But when it comes to actually doing color work, LUTs really shouldn't be used. And these people selling look LUTs, this emulation, that emulation, this creative look. No, colorists are colorists. I was a colorist. You grade. That's the whole concept of what a colorist is. Lookup tables realistically are technical and should be used for that kind of approach. We do film emulation LUTs, but we do them for a very specific reason, because in the day when we started doing this kind of stuff, the real end result was going to be film, so Kodak Vision. So if I say Kodak Vision, and if I do ColorSpace, let's try that again, and say Rec 709. Actually, let's do P3 just because. D65, right. So this is creating a lookup table that is a film emulation. So it's kind of creative, because if we go back to our picture, and if I call up, let's say, my car again, just because. Okay, you can see that when that LUT's applied, it's applying it in a very filmic, and obviously it's P3 space, so it's not going to look quite right. But what we're seeing, especially if you look at the grass and that, it's a creative look. Sure. But it's the necessity for doing that originally was because of the complex nature of film, that you cannot replicate that as a colorist. It's impossible using standard color tools to push balls around to give you a film emulation look. And back in the day, where we were butterflying between a 35mm print and a digital projector, and the two had to look identical because the creative work was being done in the digital world, we had to do LUTs that were that type of LUT. The requirement for that nowadays really isn't there in the same way. And LUTs should be used for technical applications where you're controlling something to match a given standard, a given transformation, not realistically for doing looks, because that's grading. Yeah. This is a question from me, actually. Are you familiar with a show called Ozark on Netflix? No. It takes place in the Ozarks over here in the States, and it's a very gray, cold, bluish, dreary, stormy all the time kind of look to it. So when the color grader and the colorists are working on a show like that, based on what you've just said, is that something that, and maybe it's different based on the show and the people working on it, but might they be doing something like building a lookup table to make the show look like that, or do you think that's perhaps, and it could be any show, but well, yes. No. What you're really describing there is what is an output LUT to control, if you like, the global color gamut. There you go. There you go. It's not something that is being done shot by shot to manipulate the color, which is grading. But if you say, right, the majority of this film is going to have this look, then you can put what is a color constraint or a color manipulation LUT on the back end, so that you are applying that global look inherently. You can do that in ACEs, ColorSpaces, in P3, Rec 2020, whatever. Sure. But you're applying it as a way of defining a global color palette, but you're then grading creatively underneath it. And we do actually talk about that on the website info stuff. So if we look at here, where are we? If we go into the ACEs workflows, I think it was this one. We actually talk. Yeah, here we go. So you've got what is called a viewing LUT here, which is mapping the color space. In this case, Rec 709, whatever. That LUT could be a color palette control LUT in the same way. It's still technical. It's not doing the real creative work. It's just steering you in that direction. Cool. Cool. While you're here on the website, is there anything new that we could show it anybody, like in the forums or any new articles that you posted recently? I mean, they're always being updated, so they're across the board. I mean, in the guide stuff, I mean, we haven't, what the problem is, it's always being updated, so there's always more stuff coming in. Yeah. I mean, there's some stuff there that we're still working on. So, for example, if you were to go down, let's have a look. We go to, where are we? Let's go, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, I'll go. Boland monitors, right? Boland are another manufacturer that are doing high-end monitors, and we're working with them at the moment, and it says coming soon. So that's not yet been done. We're waiting on Boland. They're doing some work on their SDK because we've given them some information on how to better run the color pipeline through their monitors. So they're working on that at the moment. I know there's another one with our friends at where is it? Where is it? Oh, I know. I'm in the wrong place. That's why. There you go, Dell, same. So this will be
Oh, sure.
done very shortly, but
Yeah.
we've been working with Dell on getting full 3D LUT integration into the ultra sharp monitors listed there. So that's coming
Um,
soon.
I keep
I
getting
mean,
asked
forums.
about. Oh, go ahead.
That's right. Go on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I keep getting asked about this LG display. I think it's something 950, I think is the model
Yeah,
number.
yeah. That's all done. That was done
Yeah,
ages ago.
that's good to know
So,
because one of my friends from a major production company, he called me and he said, "What do you think about this monitor?" And I said, "Man, I wish I could give you some information, but unfortunately, I haven't gotten my hands on one yet. But it seems to be for the price, it seems to be a pretty solid monitor. But like I said, I haven't
yeah.
seen
Well,
it yet, but people like it.
yeah. Well, I mean, well, we've got them here, so we obviously
Good.
do know. But there you go. There's
Oh, there it is.
the main ranges that are integrated with ColorSpace already, and they all work. And you can see we can do both SDR and HDR calibration for them in the same guise. The same glass, because it's a JOLED, is actually used in the Asus monitors as well. So if you look at the Asus integration, their monitors there, that then they are basically the same JOLED screen as well. So
Cool.
take your pick, whichever one works for you. They're
Yeah.
all there. They're all good.
Awesome, guys. Keep those questions rolling in. We've gotten some good ones so far. Feel free to type those questions in, and we'll get to them for sure. There's a user forums. That's where
So yeah,
I get a
yeah,
lot of information from the forums. There's a lot of very knowledgeable and very willing to help people on the forums, which I super appreciate. Everybody kind of sharing their tips and tricks.
and you're talking about the reports earlier. That's the new bit that we just a new example of what. So if I scroll back to the previous, you can download, or any users can download reports from the website. So we did a whole bunch of them. In fact, that's one that FSI
Oh, nice.
designed themselves based on
Yeah,
one of my
yeah.
original concepts. So
As
there's a
simple
whole
as it
bunch
sounds.
of. Sorry.
Sorry, as simple as it sounds, this is just going to be a simple thing, but um, the stoplight system, yellow, red, green, it's just such an easy way
Yep.
to just look at the graph or look at the report and say, okay, this is, instead of, pulling out your magnifying glass or putting your eyeglasses on to try to read some of the
Yep.
data, hey, if it's green, it's good. If it's red, it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, this one is just one that I did. You can see we've now changed it so you can have different color backgrounds too. So you notice the graphs here have got a
Oh, nice,
white
yeah.
background, whereas black. But you can see in the points here, the orange points and the green points in the chart, so you know exactly where they are, and all listed here. So you can see that the average down to E2000, which is the graphed one. So that graph is down to E2000. You can see the average is zero point 0.4, just over 0.43, with a minimum of 0.0091 and a maximum of 3, which is a red. So there's a red point in there somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah.
There's actually 56 red points in there somewhere,
Ah, yes, I
because
see that,
they're
yeah.
over these thresholds. But inside the color space, we define what we think the thresholds should be,
Hmm.
but you've actually got the ability in reports to change that. So when you're doing a report, and this is the one that you've just seen that I've been working on. So this is graphing the same TCL display when it's verified. But you can see that if we go into setup, you can actually set delta E thresholds. So I'm using the default ones, but
Hmm.
if I want to, I can go in and set the thresholds for whatever threshold I want to use. I'm
Nice.
not sure, that's something you should be doing, but you can. So you can set the
Sure.
thresholds that you would like to use. Obviously, when you're looking at the graphs itself, then that gives you a whole new level of interaction, because obviously the reports are basically static. But if I go into there and grab that one again, then, as you say, being able to see those points, especially in the volumetric graphs, you can
Hmm.
see where the color errors are kind of creeping in. So you can see here that there's more
Oh,
orange
sure.
points in those areas. And of course,
Yeah.
if we go into the graphs and we actually say, I want to see just the red points,
Oh,
then
you
I
can
can
find it.
see where the red points are. Just want to see the orange. There you go. So, you can very quickly see where you've got different errors occurring. And obviously you can break that down with the filters as well. So you can say, I want to see where I've got errors that are in the 2 to 2.5 area, or the 1.5 to 2, and so on. So it does give you a very good indication of where the display may not be meeting the required color space.
If you were to look at that entire lookup table, was that a 33 by 33 by 33, or how big was
Well,
that one?
this is the profile. So
That's
this
the
is not a
profile.
lookup
Okay,
table.
got it.
This is a
That's the
profile. So
profile of the
these are
display.
raw measurements of the display
Got it.
with that lookup table applied. So
Got
this
it.
is my verification of the LUT after I've applied it. So you can see, obviously, all the different graphs in there. Obviously, at the moment, I'm targeting both the minimum and maximum are mapped from the profile into my target. So I'm not looking at versus 100 nits or whatever. I've deliberately calibrated this to daylight viewing in a normal kind of lounge environment. So what I'm looking at is to see how accurate it is to that dynamic range.
Cool. So let's see if there's any other questions. And while I'm looking at the questions, we've looked at the manual LUT manipulation. Oh, one thing I do want to call out that we know is new, and thank you for getting this done so quickly. Our brand new, we're calling it the metal edition. I'm calling it the metal edition of our 8K 6G. That's been integrated now for a while, and we're starting to ship those. Yeah, you've had that. Those generators, by the way, those are starting to ship right now. We've got them in stock, and they're starting to go right now. If anybody has an older version, like a 4K version, or even the original 8K version, this is 8K Gen 2, and you can tell because the metal is the body is aluminum, so it's a little bit heavier, and a few other new features. But if you guys do have an older generator, we do offer a trade-in program, so feel free to reach out, and we can certainly help you with that. So thank you, Steve, for getting that integrated so quickly. That really helped.
Yeah, that was done quite a while back.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I can't remember what release that was in, but it was quite some time back.
Right. So the manual manipulation of the LUT, we talked about the TCL integration. We talked about some of the new features with the reporting that you just showed us. We got about 10 minutes left or so. What else can we look at?
Whatever you want. If anybody got any questions?
I haven't seen any questions since the last. I haven't seen any questions since the last one, so if anybody has one, feel free to chime in there. While we're waiting for any questions, if there are any, what version are we up to now so people can check their version?
1691.
Okay, cool. And for a fresh download, if needed, I'm sure it's just very easy to find on the website.
They're all website stuff is in the customer downloads area. So if you sign in, then you will find that these links become download links, and also this is where this download at the end associated is where you can download the example reports and loads of other things. So yeah, so once you sign in as a customer, then you've got access to download whatever software that you're after, as well as these additional parts.
There's been a lot of discussion lately in my world about ColorSpace Zero. The people who attend the ISF classes, we're helping them out to experiment with Zero. At what level with ColorSpace, whether it's Zero or another, all these features that you're showing us today, are those included in Zero, or do you have to get to something like the full-blown version of ColorSpace?
No, I mean, obviously Zero doesn't make lookup tables.
Sure,
So
of course.
you can't do point adjusting lookup tables because you can't do lookup tables.
Right.
I mean, Zero is the same basic software, and it is basically the same software. The difference is that it doesn't have some features. So it doesn't have LUTs, it doesn't have reports, you can't do layouts. But the underlying functionality is exactly the same as the main software. So when you're doing manual adjustments, then this has the same options. Obviously, because it's Zero, it has a limited selection of probes that you can connect to, but obviously the color check and the data spider, actually the data color spider X2, we're just about to add that one in, because data color have obviously just released that, so that's something that is coming shortly. We're waiting on data color.
Yeah.
Obviously the color checker, what was the I1D3, so it has those probes, and again in hardware, you're limited to P generator, or our network server for
Right.
a TPG. But you've got the tools you need to be doing manual
Yeah.
manipulation, including loading in your own presets so that you've got your whichever kind of let's have a look. Memory, let's have a look.
So this,
Grey ramp large. There you go. So there's a large grey ramp of preset patches.
yeah,
So when you're actually profiling, here we go. There's the color box. Then you can jump to different colors very quickly just by
sure.
clicking on the your preset patch list. We
Do
do
you
memory
find
colors.
I find this with some of the new users, is that they use zero and they get a good handle on it and doing everything manually, and then they sort of
Yep.
graduate to doing lookup table method. Is that kind of what you're
Yep.
saying too? Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, zero is focused at doing manual calibration for displays that don't have lookup tables. But it means you can get in there and tweak the grayscale, tweak the gamut controls, whatever. But you can also profile it. So I mean, if I just move this pitch over onto my other monitor, um, although we don't have characterization, so that box there or icon there doesn't work, which it
hmm
does with the main color space. So you can see that
oh
obviously
sure,
if I go back into profiling, then characterization, and you can select your different patch sets, cube based at whatever size and so on.
hmm
Zero doesn't have that, but when it comes to verifying a display, then you can just do it quite simply with
right,
a patch list. You can manually set the sliders,
right.
but if you use a patch list, and if I just connect to the probe and just very quickly with
I love
auto
how
advanced
I
tick,
love how snappy
that
everything
now
is. I've always
does
liked
an
that.
automated profile. So
Yeah,
that's now going to measure a characterization, even though it doesn't have characterization capability.
yeah.
And if you look at the sliders, you can see they're bouncing around
hmm
because it's setting the TPG to each of the colors that are in the patch list.
Yeah. I love how snappy it is. It's so fast. What meter, if you don't mind sharing, what meter are you
Yeah, that,
using
that,
right
that
now?
that's a color checker
The
by
D3?
1D3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So decently fast meter plus very fast software. It goes through quickly. I know people appreciate that. This is where I started. I started playing around with Zero 2 or 3 years ago now, and that's a great place to learn. I tell people all the time in classes, and maybe you'll agree with me, but I always tell people, as you're practicing and learning this from scratch, I encourage people to do things manually so they get an idea of the quirkiness of a particular model number of TV, for example. And once you've kind of got your head wrapped around that, and then you kind of graduate to using lookup tables, to me at least, it's like, oh wow, I don't have to do all that work I was doing before. I can do it this way instead. It goes much faster. I get much better results. This is the way we should be doing it. I just like to teach people manual first so they can learn how much of a pain in the butt it can be, and then they can go do it the easy way.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you've got a display that's got 3D LUT capability, then that's what you should be using.
Sure.
But quite a few don't, especially home TVs.
Yeah.
But again, it is important to understand how these things work, so
hmm
that you understand what these bars mean. What the difference is between chroma only. What this target box means, which is a zoom in of the particular point that you're measuring.
Right.
So unless you really spend some time doing things manually, you're not really going to understand what these things mean.
Sure.
Well, that's something else we've done. We've actually added in an auto zoom now, so that in this graph, when you're measuring a point, if as you get to an error value, you can see that it's automatically now zoomed in to be 2 times
Oh, nice.
zoom.
So you can
So
just
it
see more
just means that
detail.
when you're looking at points, it will automatically zoom in to give you a greater understanding of the level of accuracy that you're looking at.
Sure. Good, good. Bill asked if the Murideo metal version is on the website. Yes, it is. Feel free to take a look. There's a new meter floating around out there, and I was just curious if it's integrated so far. It's a French company called the meter's called Calif.
Yeah,
Have you had
Qualif,
a
they've
chance
been
to
in
look
for
at those?
ages.
They've been in,
We
yeah,
did
because
that years ago.
like from the consumer side, they haven't really had a huge presence. They have a huge presence with like Barco specifically, but I've got a sample with me right now, and it seems to be a really neat meter. But you guys
It's
sounds like it's been integrated for a while,
it's good. It's good. It's good for projectors, but
right?
because you know, what it's designed. It's just the older design. The new one is a slightly sicker looking. But they're, you know, they're good for projectors, not quite so good on monitors. I mean, they work, but they're definitely focused at being projector based. But yeah, we've had Qualif integration for a long time. In fact, the latest one that we're doing, which we have just started, I'm going to have to hold on a second. I've got to do something to look up something. So bear with me.
Yeah, no worries. The Colleaf meter that we've been using, if you want to take a look at it, anybody who's listening, it's a spectroradiometer. Company from they come from France. It's got a really nice touchscreen. It's handheld. It's very similar to, if anyone's ever seen some of the photo research meters. You know, you can just hold it with your hand. You can see all the data on the screen. So if you don't have your laptop handy, everything's right there. And it's so far I've been playing with the sample, and it's been a great little meter. I'm excited to use it more.
They do work well. But yeah, we've been talking to a Dutch company. Again, they've just sent us an example of their new meter.
Yeah.
And I've forgotten the name. I know roughly what it is, but
TVL or something like that.
No, it's not. It's a really the problem is when you've caught me kind of looking at something.
I know, like, sorry. It's like when someone says, it's like when someone says, "Who's your favorite band?" And you go, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I know where it will be.
Guys, while Steve's looking that up, just lightillusion.com is where the website's at, where you can see the forums and all these great features and demos and guides and things. Steve's YouTube channel is also very helpful. If you just search for ColorSpace or Light Illusion.
They're linked on the website. So if you go to the guides on the website, then you'll find that straight away.
Yeah. I find myself sending people the probe matching video all the time. People most calibrators now, the ones who take it, I don't want to say this in a disparaging way because everyone I feel like takes it seriously, but the people who are really taking it seriously, most calibrators in their kit now have 2 meters. So the profiling question has been coming up quite a bit, the probe matching question.
Yeah, I mean we've got in the user guides, you'll see, in fact, actually there's the video guides. They're all linked to there, so you can go straight to the video guides. But yeah, the probe matching there's a good setup there. Yeah. So a good set of information there on how we do it. Obviously, we do it inside ColorSpace because we have a very different approach to the on-probe matching, which is limited to the FCMM approach. So obviously, what we do is far beyond that. That's a good point as well. What we've also done recently, there was a problem with the extra delay. That's now been fixed. So extra delay now works properly. So that's a plus. That's a plus. Not having something working is never good. And these are the new probes. These are Adnacy.
So
and we are just literally integrating those as we speak.
I've never seen that before. That's a new one to me. That's very cool. And you like it so
they're
far?
Actually good. Yeah, they're nice.
And I saw there was a one you showed a moment ago. It looked like the body and the lens, the collector may have been not the collector, but
they've got a whole range of different options. And the Neo series was the one I just looked at. Here we go, which is that one.
That's
so
cool.
The basic box of that probe can be brought outside, so it can be used remotely on a fiber optic cable.
Oh, that's what it is. It's fiber.
Yeah.
Are they? This may be a question for them, but maybe in your journey so far with them, do you know if they're trying to break into more of the professional space or more of the consumer space? Or are they just trying to go for it all? Have you gotten any ideas?
They've been quite big for quite some time in the industrial arena,
right?
And it's actually some of our users that got hold of them and actually started using them in the broadcast arena.
Nice.
So that's why they've now come to us and said, what do you know on our probes? And we went, well, nothing.
Yeah.
So they've sent us a couple, and we're doing the integration. So they will be in not in zero. They won't, because they won't be in zero.
Yeah.
But they will be in ColorSpace. They'll be in the hardware list in the not too distant future. So they will appear in this list very soon.
Nice, nice. Well, guys, that pretty much puts us at our time. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you, Steve, for your time today. These all look like really neat features. I know the people who use ColorSpace quite a bit. They're excited about some of this new stuff. We've seen your post on LinkedIn. If you guys want to see some of the most updated stuff, I know Steve's very active on LinkedIn, posting new things, and of course the website that we looked at already. So the information's out there. If you can't find something, let me know directly. Feel free to email Steve directly, and we can find the answer for you. But other than that, looks like maybe there's one more question. And Bill just says, thank you, Steve and Jason. So thank you, Steve. Thanks for everybody who's watching. If you weren't able to watch this live, or if you are watching it live and you found this useful, I'll get it posted up on YouTube today, hopefully by the end of the day today. So feel free to share away with all of your other friends who calibrate, or maybe they're interested in getting into it. And if you've been through an ISF class before and you have your certificate that says that you've passed the test and you've completed, reach out to me or Steve. And actually, I would say reach out to me, and we can help you out with one of those zero licenses to check out. Other than that, Steve, that's all I got, man.
Cool. All good, Jason.
Cool. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Bye-bye.